I'm Richard Taylor, I'm a resident of Cambridge, and I'd like to ask what is the potential scope of the bus priority scheme for Milton Road. Now, my MP, the MP for the area, is currently campaigning, urging people to join his campaign against cutting down all the trees and turning Milton Road into a dual carriageway. So I've come here and I want to ask you, is that scaremongering, or is that something which could really happen? I think you must have some idea of the potential scope for this scheme. You've got fairly accurate cost which you published for it. You've supposedly done an economic impact assessment of it, and we haven't got any published details of what it involves. Now, clearly, even if the board hasn't been told what the scheme involves, officers somewhere know what they're thinking of. And I think that in order to inform public debate, we should have published into the public domain at least the scope of potential options that you are considering. Like, could it just be £20 million worth of traffic light tweaks? Is that what a bus priority measure could turn out to be? Could it be something that affects the full length of Milton Road? Could the problems on Milton Road be addressed by dealing with problems elsewhere on the road network? Could we see segregated cycling put in down Milton Road under this scheme? So my question is just where on the spectrum of possibilities do your proposals lie, and sort of where on that spectrum could we be seeing? Can you rule out what the Liberal Democrats are campaigning against, the dual carriageway and cutting down all the trees? Could we see a segregated cycle lane? Just can we have some more details?
Mr. Hughes, could you start the response?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I think the first thing to say is there is no particular scope for this scheme or this project. And the reason why that is the case, we made it clear at the Assembly meeting, is that at the moment it's a concept that we've suggested, or we did suggest on the 12th of January to the Assembly, is worth looking at. That's being suggested again to this Executive Board, and clearly the Board members will take their decisions on that. If the view is that that's an important scheme, what we've said is we will go away and look at potential options, and we will come back through the Assembly and the processes that have been set down with some potential options. And I think we made clear at the last meeting as well that the process is that should, at that point, none of the options be seen as worth pursuing, then clearly that scheme can drop out of the programme. So there are no preconceived ideas. We put some very rough costs simply because to allow some sort of an appraisal and a build-up of the programme, we have to have some sort of idea of cost. No doubt you'll be aware that there, in the dim and distant past, has been a scheme, was a scheme that was proposed for Milton Road probably 15 years ago, I think now. We're not looking to resurrect that scheme at all, so there are certainly no proposals, and I think it is scaremongering for anybody to talk about dual carriageways on Milton Road, or indeed any of the other roads, because we made it very clear as part of the City Deal programme that this is about getting public transport, buses principally, effectively, efficiently, and reliably into the city centre. It's not about dramatically increasing capacity for the car. Having said that, we do, if this board decides that it's a priority, we do need to be able to come back with a full range of options to allow the Assembly and the board to take a view. I think just one other point I would make, and again, I think this was a question that was asked at the Assembly around cycling and the schemes. I think I made the point very clearly there that where we were in terms of design principles 15 years ago when this issue was last looked at, compared to where we are now, is a very, very different place. And so we seek to, I don't like the term, but effectively mainstream cycling into all of our schemes. And so whether it's segregated, whether it's other forms of provision, we don't design these sorts of schemes just for one mode of transport. We seek to build in good quality cycling and walking infrastructure into all of these schemes. And I think that is a principle of whatever, as officers, we come forward to the Assembly and the board with, we will be building into the proposals. Chairman.
Is there another response?
I'll have to respond to your response.
Okay, well, I think I've gained something there, haven't I? The officer's first response was that there is no definition behind these words and there is no scope, and then we got to hear that the dual carriageway is ruled out, and confirmation that talking about dual carriageway is scaremongering. So I've achieved something here in narrowing it down, but I still find it difficult to believe that there is no more, that there is genuinely no more detail there, given that you've put a figure on its cost and supposedly assess its economic impact.
Well, I think as you'll see from the pages that went to the Assembly and the discussions along with the presentations, that on each of the schemes these are concepts. They, as we'll discuss, depending on what the board decides, there is a linkage between the schemes. There is a logic in looking at trying to tie the schemes together, but I don't think Mr. Hughes is saying that this is anywhere like necessarily the final amount. It's just a concept, and we could well consult on something that's quite different to it. As I've advised you elsewhere, the members of the board are not on, and the Assembly have not been given any more detail than has been published. But I can assure you that before there's any scheme proper, there will be full consultation and full openness about what's being proposed.
I'd like to re-emphasise what Mr. was saying there. I mean, the way I see it at the moment is that where we've been told, and the Assembly has been told, areas that are either bottlenecks or perhaps capacity issues, or maybe if we could improve some area that have not an effect on that. So it's very easy to identify that there are certain areas that we would be better off spending our time working on than others. So that Milton Road would be an example where it's worth considering. But actually to pre-design a scheme and actually cost it up would be a very long fetch for us at this stage of the agenda to go and do that. So the Assembly were told very clearly, and I was part of listening to that discussion, that these figures have come from knowing how long pieces of roads are, multiplying them out by the sort of things that you could do over that sort of length of road. So the concepts are, we need to look at those areas, but not look at the predefined scheme, and that's where I've always been under the understanding. But I'm also of the understanding that when we deliver a shorter list today, that's for people to really focus their work. And in the paper today, you will see, marked against everything, that there are deliverability criteria, not criteria, deliverability assessments. Where, for example, if we know a cycle path goes from A to B, it will be a cycle path going from A to B. Or we know that there's not likely to be any objections there. It's very easy to say we can deliver that. But where we have the concept that's got a myriad of different possibilities, and I'm not exactly sure how that will work out, that might have a high degree of uncertainty about deliverability. And that's where we're coming in and trying to decide the long list. Once we've got the long list down to a shorter list, officers will go away, they will do their work, and they'll come back to us and the public with the various concepts, and then we'll see what is plausible and what is possible. And in some cases, where some people might feel something really needs to be delivered, but it's just too difficult to achieve, we may have to move from that area into a different area so that we can achieve the early term and look at somewhere in the longer term. But yeah, it's very early stages, so I think we've got an accurate picture as possible at the moment.
Okay, thank you.